Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts, Hare and Forbes Machinery House, and Pace Farm. Classic trucks have always had a strong history with the show, and today it's time for some more on this week's episode of Classic Restos. Trucks. It's the old school. The guys that drove them, the trucks themselves, the guts and the glory. And just west of Sydney, there's a place no better to showcase a paddock full of the things than the Museum of Fire in Penrith, New South Wales. Classic trucks on the ground of a classic museum. This was a power station for Penrith back in 1951. Nice to see that it's heritage listed and today home to an extraordinary amount of fire truck vehicles and associated firefighting memorabilia. If you haven't seen the amazing Museum of Fire, it's well worth the trip. See it on your own or bring the family, as the history here awaits you. It's great to have a nice day out, but if the day is educational as well, it makes it so much more worthwhile. The museum is dedicated to taking us back in time, in tribute of our mighty firefighters, past and current, continuing a legacy for our firefighters and all of our essential services personnel. The museum welcomes you and encourages you to keep an eye out on their website and social media pages for up-and-coming events happening on the grounds. You know, it's great to get around and get back with some truckies, do some interviews. How are you, Bob?
Good, thanks, Fletch. Yourself, mate?
Good, mate. Good. Picking on you here at Penrith, over here at the Museum of Fire. Great day so far.
Yeah, sure, I think it is, mate. And a good crew here and a good roll-up and a good response for the lot, I can tell you. Yeah.
A lot of you guys worked very well with Classic Restos. There were two series of trucks a number of years ago now, 26 episodes, and a lot of you guys are here today. It's great to see some old faces again. But Bob, this is the first time for this truck on the show. We go back to the Internationals and the Accos, the same type, shape of the cab. I remember back in 1980 when the Atkinson cab came out. It was like an upscale version, a nicer version of the Acco cab.
Right.
And this old girl here has had a custom job done to it, obviously themed from those ideas.
Exactly. I think the same thing. And I bought it as it is here, Fletch, and I've done it up a lot. And the workmanship in it is incredible. For what the man's done, it's incredible.
Back in the time too, when it was done, it was a serious bit of kit out on the freeway.
Oh, it was. She's got a good reputation out there. A lot of blokes know it and admire it, and she's pretty well known on the countryside now.
Right, Bob. Well, on that note, give us the rundown. What's the history of this truck?
Okay, well, it's a 77 model Acco with a 3070, and it's got a 903 turbo in it, rated at 530 horses with a 15 overdrive. Single drive, and she goes well.
Isn't there something about those 903s? 903 cubic acres. And yes, boy, didn't they have a sound of their own.
They did. And this one here, she has got a sound. She's pretty well straight through. No mufflers. But everybody loves the sound of the V8 in it. You can really hear the V8.
Now, I think from memory, the Acco Eagle back in their day was the turbo version with the 903.
Turbo. They came out with a different paint job, a two-tone paint job, air conditioned on the roof, a little bit more horses. Virtually everything else was the same, but they just made the Eagle, called it an Eagle, and yeah, much the same truck, yes.
Back in high school, watching the Accos take off from the traffic lights and seeing their cabs torque up through the gears, I was like, and the sound and the stacks. Stacks on this truck, have a go at this. Have a look at it, would you? We got twin stainless steel stacks here. Well, of course, you've got a V8. V8 equals two pipes in any man's language.
Exactly, yes, and let me tell you, they do their job. They do their job.
You could be anywhere in the world, go up to some person that doesn't speak one word of English, and if he's got a V8 and twin pipes, he's going to understand.
Exactly, mate, exactly. And that's what a lot of people look at first off. In a lot of cases, they go straight for the exhaust pipes, and it's got to tell you something, yes.
V8 got to have 2 pipes. So diff ratio out back, 3 9s in the early 4s.
Yes, exactly, yeah. And, yeah, depending on the jobs, Fletch, you want a pulling power, bit of speed, back in them days, of course, but different story today. So it's, the average would be the 3.9, yes, for sure.
Now, the history of the truck, of where it ran, what did it do?
Okay, well, I've never personally met the man himself that owned it, but I've heard a lot of people that's had a lot to do with the truck in the past. And from what I've gathered at different shows that it goes to, it used to do 5 a fortnight, Adelaide to Sydney. He had a contract with the Dulux or British Paints, and paints back to Adelaide. And they reckon it was one of the fastest things on the road, and he was pretty well up on his weights all the time, and a good reputation.
Well, we can say this now in 2019, but the truck back in the day probably did the best of 80 and 90 miles an hour every time it drove.
I'd say that. I would say that. And driving it today as it is, let me tell you, the horses, when you crack the whip, they march. Yeah.
His contract being paints as well. What a lucky guy. That'd be great having a paint sponsor, because just think, if you had a paint sponsor, every day you could wear a different coat.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, good point.
Now, the guys out on the road with their 4x4s and they're pulling their camping trailers, what I love about what you guys do with some of these hobby trucks now, because it doesn't work anymore, it's just for your own pleasure to run around in, which I think is so cool. It is so cool. Love what you've done with one of the fuel tanks there, made a door in there. No more fuel in there, Bob. It's got a battery and a fridge.
Yes, and let me tell you, I'm pretty well set up. I got me bed, I got me fridge, I can go away from home like no problem at all.
You don't, not only can you go away from home, you don't have to go back there.
Well, that's another point, mate.
Conversation for another day. Right. Okay, Bobby. Well, great meeting you, mate.
Same here, Fletch. Same here, mate. Been a pleasure, buddy. Thanks very much.
And thanks for showing your custom, your international, mate. Well done. Thank you.
My pleasure, mate. Thank you.
We've always had a few cars. They're all special. The T-Bird.
Oh, that's mine.
The Combi for when we want to get away. The XR8.
It's going to be a classic.
They're all insured with Shannons,
We've also got Shannon's home and contents cover.
which helps protect our automotive collectibles, tools and memorabilia in the home and garage. If you're motoring enthusiasts like us, it's got to be.
Shannon's.
Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts. Call 13 46 46 for a quote.
If you have a restoration project, Hare and Forbes has the tools that you need. Shrinker stretchers, dollies, mallets, bead rollers, profile gauges, professional panel restoration kits, and so much more. Now I warn you, enter at your own risk, because you will end up buying something. So come along to your Cap City store or browse and buy online at machineryhouse.com.au, because Hare and Forbes has the range. I don't know, there's something about trucks. I think it goes back to when we were little kids. What do you reckon, Al?
Well, my dad was a truckie, so I kept it up.
And boy, you've got something behind us here that's pretty special. Something from the United States of America. A big Peterbilt. Wow, what a truck.
Yeah, they're pretty rare over here. Oh, I've had it about 8 or 9 years, but it took 20 months to build in Melbourne by a bloke that works on Peterbilts only, Frank Christie.
Yep. And he did the conversion too, right?
Right-hand conversion. He'd already done 65 of them. I was number 66, so he knows his stuff.
Yeah. Nice truck. I mean, the paint colour just pops straight away. It's a truck that's immediately to your attention.
Well, I think it's what you call Brambles Red. Very close to Brambles Red.
Found a couple of drums of Brambles paint left over from the 70s. Thought we'd do the Peterbilt with it. Mate, tremendous job here. The engine, run us through the specs, what you've done there.
I think it was reconditioned in the States before it come over, because it's got heaps of compression and good oil pressure, and when you start it, it starts, and when you turn it off, it doesn't run on. So I kind of think they've done an in-chassis rebuild in it. It's a 400 Cummins, just done all the gearing on it, so it's got long legs, get a bit of fuel consumption.
Nice turbo hanging off the side.
Yeah, just change it to a 444 turbo, give it a little bit more pickup, and because I've got it geared so low at 100 kilometres an hour, it's only doing 1,500 revs, so it's kind of out of its comfort zone, so it was a bit sluggish on pickup.
Must have, tall rear gears.
Yeah, 3.7s.
Well, it's a grunty thing. We've got a single drive in back there, and talking of out the back, you've got a drag car. You've got a few cars, right?
I got 2 hot rods and an FJ. One of the hot rods I do the nostalgia drags, the old stuff, only 2 or 3 times a year.
It must be pretty cool to have a truck like this that you don't use for a commercial purpose. It's like any of us, I guess, with a classic car or a classic bike, you've got a classic truck. There's a lot of you guys here that have got these trucks now that you drive on Sunday, so to speak. How cool is that? It'd be something I guess many years ago, it wouldn't have even entered your mind that you'd have one of these just to drive on Sunday one day.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. People stick their thumbs out and give you the thumbs up, and they're often driving past with their phones in their hands, taking pictures. And
Shots on screen now of the restoration. The truck came out from the United States, white in colour. Went back down to the chassis, down to the rails. Big job with the conversion, right back to the firewall, complete dashboard. A lot of work went in, Al.
Yeah, he does a good job. That's all he does is work on. Actually, when I took mine down to him, he was a bit embarrassed. He had a Louisville in the paint shop, and he doesn't usually work on other models, just Peterbilts. But yeah, the right-hand conversion is a big job.
It's about fueling the hobby, isn't it? It's fueling our interest, and what you've got here, it's set up. It's not something I guess you have to keep on. You've just got to really run the thing now, don't you?
Well, I drive a dangerous goods bitumen tanker, V8 Scania automatic. During the week, I do 50 to 60 hours during the week.
That'll sound good.
Yeah, it does sound good. And we go interstate on the weekends and this to truck shows and hot rod shows. Or I went to the drag by myself to Willowbank last year. And we come back from Queensland at Easter, and my wife said to me, she said, Al, you must like driving trucks. I said, well, yeah, you could say that. I put a lot of hours in during the week, and then I'd go take my logbook with me on weekends and go interstate. I said,
You take the logbook to bed with you, do you, Al?
No, it's got to be over 100 kilometres before she gets used. But yeah, I guess I do like driving trucks.
Al, it's been wonderful catching up with you, mate. Nice to meet you, and take care of this lovely Peterbilt.
Thanks very much, Fletch.
If you enjoy classic restos, well, there's over 315 episodes awaiting you on the Shannons Club. Why not find out more information on how Shannons can look after your ride by calling 134646 for a quote and a chat. Check out the Shannons Club. For more information, check out shannons.com.au. Moving on through, as we do, time for a 1958 Kenworth. How you doing, Charlie?
Very good, Fletch. How are you?
Great, mate, great. Love what you've done here.
You like it?
Yeah, I do. My first reaction, before we start talking about the truck, the year is interesting because at first glance it reminded me of the Peterbilt out of the Dennis Weaver movie Jewel. So that was a 1958 Peterbilt, same year for the Kenworth, very, very similar.
Very similar, yes. We took her up to Gatton in Queensland last year in November, and on the UHF, other truck drivers thought it was a Peterbilt. And I'd get on there and say, no, mate, it's a Kenworth. No, it's not, it's a Peterbilt. Yeah, well, it says Kenworth on the bonnet, so it's a Kenworth.
The way that the guys set up the Peterbilts, how they're long and low, and that's what you've done here. It's a very, very cool look with what you've done here. Walk us through what you've done with the suspension.
Well, it's got a Freightliner airliner rear airbag suspension. The guy I got it off, well, previous owner took the front springs out, left the 2 mains. And then I fitted airbags out of a Kenworth 8-bag rear suspension in the front. And it's got 4 height levelling valves, so it can go around the corner and handle good. And
Nice truck to drive.
it's very good.
You're a clever guy, Charlie. I admire the sheet metal work too. One look in the interior there, obviously replacing a floor section.
Yeah, it's checker plate aluminium, 5mm thick. Threw it in there one day to do some work and thought, oh, it looks cool, so I left it in there.
You like working with your flat bar, don't you, Charlie?
Yeah, I like working with my flat bar, that's right. It's good
Get
stuff.
big chunks of iron and go drill holes in it.
Yeah, yep. I do that every day for a living.
Good on you, mate. Well done. Okay, engine up front. Cummins 6-cylinder. What's the deal there?
It's an NH220 turbocharged Cummins, original engine. It's got a decompression lever on it for in the cold weather in America. You pull a lever on the dash and
It's got a block heater too.
it's got a block heater, it's still there with the American plug on it for the cold weather. It came out of Oregon. I've got the title for it.
Just a bit of interest. Horsepower. What are we looking at there?
I'm not real sure. So it's either 220 or with the turbo it could be a little bit more.
Yeah, see, 220 horsepower. in 1958. That were huge numbers.
Originally it was bogie drive with torsion bar suspension. It's got a 5-speed main box and a 3-speed auxiliary. Fifth gear in the main box is 0.85 overdrive. And it's got a 0.84 overdrive in the 3-speed Joey box, so it cruises pretty good.
Charlie, you've rat-rodded the Kenworth. You don't see one of these every day. We look around a paddock full of incredible vehicles here today. It's the only one here. What inspired you to go down this road?
Something different. I've got the shiny ones at home. And I bet once I got a really good one at home. I've been working on it for 6 years. It's not finished yet. It's brand new. I've even replaced the chassis rails in it. And when I bring it to this show, this truck will get more attention than the good one.
It does. I've noticed that with car shows. You've got guys that spend 100, 200k on a car, and then an old HQ wagon will come through the gate that's been parked under a tree for the last 35 years and it's got 30 people around it.
That's right. Yeah, well, we took it to Gatton. Oh, that many people wanted to buy it, take it home. They said if it's not here in the morning, it'll be in my garage.
Now, not a silly question, Charlie. Weighs what, around the 6-tonne mark?
5 tonne 4.
Now, because you've lowered it, does it turn into corners nicer? Is it noticeably different?
I don't know. I've only driven it 3 times since it's registered. And I haven't been over 80 kilometres an hour yet.
Well, I think it's very cool, mate. Thanks for your time here this afternoon. You got to love it. 1958 Kenworth. Hey, drop him down on the pavement. Do something different. Well done, mate.
Thank you.
I spend a lot of time out here. The RT Charger's the real deal. An E49. Remember A-Charger? I've always got projects on the go, so Shannon's laid-up cover helps protect my restorations. I'm Mopar through and through. It's a passion Shannon's understands. I wouldn't insure my cars and bikes with anyone else.
Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts. Call 13 46 46 for a quote.
Hare & Forbes Machinery House has been family owned and operated for over 85 years, and it's easy to see why. Planning on welding? Look at these welding tables and clamps, air compressors and different air tools, sandblasting cabinets, through to spray guns. Everyone is welcome at Machinery House. There are competitive freight rates around Australia, and you can buy online at machineryhouse.com.au. So remember, Hare & Forbes has the range. And no stranger to classic restos, Bernie Leeson. It's been a while. How are you, mate?
It's been really good, and we're going all right, Fletch. We're having a ball. The feet still hit the floor in the morning. That's a good sign.
Absolutely. You're still supporting the fraternity proudly, turning up to these trucking events. You guys do a wonderful job. Now, we're just going to digress from trucks just for a moment because I have to share with you Bernie's latest ride. It's behind us. Mate, what's going on here?
Well, Fletch, he says, we went to look for a C-cab Chev truck. And
so it's truck related, okay.
It's truck related. We're not going to diversify too much. He says, but Cheryl and I, we dawdle off into the bush and we're going to have a look at this C-cab Chev. Now, this C-cab Chev was absolutely brilliant. Like, it was restored very, very well. But it's not what I wanted. It was too well done. Anyway, so I had to try and get in the old mate's barn. He had a big barn there and it had a big chain on the front of it. And I says to the old mate, I says, what else have we got for sale? He says, I've got a hot rod. Well, as you know, Fletch, I don't need any more hot rods in my stable. Anyway, but I says, I'm interested in that. so we go and have a look. Well, we open up the barn, and right in the back corner is this old junker behind us. And I says, that's the one I want. He says, it's not for sale. That was on the Sunday. Well, we picked it up Monday.
So it's a 1928 Ford. Looks to me, Bernie, it's the type of vehicle you can drive flat out for about 300 metres and you've got to let it stop for 3 hours before you can start it again.
Not anymore, Fletch. There's more. No, one of my mates, he comes round and he says, what are we going to do with this, Bernie? He says, I says, I've got to flush the radiator. He says, well, how good's this? He says, my dad's got a contraption. You shove it into the flipping radiator hose, you put your hose clamp on it. He says, you pump an airline into it and a hose. And he says, and that'll flush it. I says, you beauty, that's what we need. So we stuck this contraption up the flipping hose, connected an airline to it and a water line. Right, that's great. Waited till the compressor pumped up enough air of it. And then I said to the bloke, I says, how do we work this? He says, well, when you think you've got enough air in there, he says, just pull that lever. He says, and that'll flow water and air through your radiator. Well, that was all good till I pulled the lever out and the front of the radiator come flying out of it. He says, well, thanks, that worked well. He says, well, it's clean, isn't it? So I had to put a new radiator in it.
Bernie, talking to the radiator and what's in front of it, it looks like toilet seat. What's the toilet seat there?
Well, don't you dump?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes I got to dump too, you know.
Right.
So that's hence the dunny.
I think of other places to go. Then I wouldn't dump here in front of your car.
No, but or you might not. But tell you what, when you got to go, Fletch, you got to go.
Now onto the mechanical side of the old girl. At idle, beautiful sound, reverbing against the cowbell, hanging off the back there with the lantern held on by a bit of fencing wire, mate. State of the art fencing wire, I got to say as well.
Yes, and it was cut by a very reliable side cutters too. Old mate and the fence is not happy. Because I think his Guernsey got out.
All his livestock's out on the freeway.
yeah, but my lantern's holding up, and I think that's important, you know, because it's all about safety, as you know. Yeah, well, it's been like that. I've always had a passion for trucks, as we talked about in previous episodes. Somewhere along the line, I used to muck around with my grandfather with his trucks, and then ultimately ended up driving them. And one thing led to another thing. So what we do is we ended up making a business out of it. Anyway, that sort of went all right. And then I got a bit of an ultimatum there. And Cheryl said to me, she says, well, the trucks have got to go or I'm going. And I said, boy, I'm going to miss you. Anyway, but I found her. So I looked for her. And don't bring me unstuck here, Fletch. He says, so anyway, we changed direction a little bit. But then you always end up in trucks. He says, once you're in trucks, you always end up in them. And if you love them, and that's what happens. It's we're passionate about our trucks. They can give you pretty damn good lifestyle, Fletch, and you know, but it's just the camaraderie that we get in places like this. You know, like you've been around the show here in Penrith, and it's just been an incredible amount of old gear that is still being restored and looked after, and people are passionate about this stuff. Right, when it comes down to the historic trucks, I think it is only going to get bigger and better. And the reason I say that is to answer the question. He says, you get all the guys that are sort of middle-agey, getting a little bit on, they're not working their own trucks as much, they're discovering their old trucks that they've found, you know, that used to be first in their family, and then one thing leads to another thing, and before you know it, they're getting restored or rebuilt or kept as they were in their working clothes. And it's going to get bigger and bigger. There's no two ways about it. You've been to Victoria truck shows, you know, there's hundreds of them. You go to Alice Springs, there's 5,000 trucks turn up. That's pretty big, and that's a lot of commitment from a lot of people, so that's a lot of passion. Right, what happened with the motorhome on the back of the old 900? Once I retired the old 900, we were going to go to Alice. So I go to I bought an old Pantech off Dawson's in Bathurst. He says, I took that back home. He says, and Cheryl says, what are you going to do with that? I says, that's where we're going to sleep in when we go to Alice. She goes, oh, yeah, righto. So off I dawdle down to Sleep City or something, and they've got this bed lying on the floor there. He says, it's just exactly what I wanted. So I said to old mate, I said, I'll have that bed. He says, righto. He says, do you want me to disassemble it? I says, no, you look like pretty big blokes there, but you carry it back to my trailer. And he said, have you got a trailer? I says, no. He says, but I'll go home and get it. So anyway, I dawdled back home and hooked up the Dawson's trailer to the old 900, parked out the front of Sleep City, and there's two big Kiwi blokes coming through my bedding. And I said, put it up the front there, boys, that's where it's going to be. Close the doors, everybody's going good. I get home, I didn't realise this bed was on wheels. It had rolled off the top deck, it smashed in about 7 pieces. Cheryl goes, where are we going to sleep? He says, I don't know, man, put a jigsaw puzzle together and you got yourself a bed. So anyway, I said, you live with me, dear? He says, I'll make this a cosy comfort camper. And that's what we did. So now we've got a bed in there, we've even got a wardrobe, and we've got a dunny, we've got a full-size shower, self-contained, and we can go away for a long, long time, Fletch, and don't have to do anything. Well, Cheryl does, you've got to clean this place up because I'm a grub.
Well, I hope you have enjoyed just some of the Sydney Classic and Antique Truck Show for 2019 here at the Museum of Fire in Penrith, New South Wales. And you've seen it first on Classic Restos. As I say at the end of every episode, until next week, no matter where you're watching the show from, please ride and drive safe. I'm Fletch, and I thank you very much for watching. You can like and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Classic Restos TV and watch catch-up episodes at shannons.com.au. Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts, Hare and Forbes Machinery House, and Pace Farm.